I hope you're having a good day. My name is Kevin Knight, Chairman and CEO of Knight Transportation. I really appreciate you taking your valuable time to look into and to check out our company. First off, I'm one of the founders. We started this business in 1990, started it with a clean sheet of paper, and it allowed us to set up a business that I felt like would provide our drivers and our customers and all of our employees with a great place to work and just a good trucking company to provide service for this industry. What inspired me to start Knight Transportation? Well, first off, it was me and my brother and two cousins. And so I'll kind of talk for all of us, unless you're fortunate enough to get them in front of a camera, but you might not. Each one of us had about 15 years, give or take, of experience in the trucking industry. We all had significant experience at Swift. That's where we learned. Trucking industry had been deregulated about 10 years before. We wanted just a real simple, straightforward, high quality, very efficient, highly profitable trucking company, and that was really our goal, is just that. It's really that simple. We didn't really even think about size, like we just wanted it to be good. We first had to find somebody crazy enough to borrow the money to us. We found banks that were willing to take the risk. We wanted to make sure that we got to at least 100 trucks. We basically needed at least $10 to $12 million worth of capital. And I always felt like if we could get that debt paid off, we would have the ability to do whatever we wanted. When you have to pay people back, you don't necessarily control your own destiny. We all felt like if we had 100 trucks, we could feel like we were a significant provider in Arizona and in California. Starting to hire drivers and other people to help us because we were going to get to 100 fairly rapidly. And so the four of us weren't going to be able to do it alone.
So I started driving for Knight about a month after they hauled their first load. They hauled their first load in July of 1990, and I came over in August of 1990. When I saw that first big, beautiful red cab over pulling a brand new 53-foot trailer, I thought, I got to look into this.
You knew all the drivers' names, knew all the office people's names, and it was just, it was much smaller.
We were all cramped down in the Buckeye office at the time in our south building. It was very family-like.
It really was such a tight-knit little ops group running the entire West Coast in one room.
Robin Hilton, back in the day, she was a port manager. Knight would allow that office people could bring their kids. She brought her son in. He was 8 years old at the time, and he became a dispatcher, terminal manager, VP of port services, and he's still here. That's how close Knight is, family-wise.
We were operating out of an office at our current Buckeye location. That wasn't even a trucking company then. It was a warehouse owned by Randy and his family.
I didn't know in that first year if Knight was going to be what it is today or if it was just kind of a here today, gone tomorrow company.
There was a company called Heartland Express in Coralville, Iowa. They were the gold standard. There were things about them that we wanted to emulate. There were things from Swift that we wanted to take with us. And a person we love, our old boss, Jerry, sued us. It's really hard to say this, but I really appreciate that he did. It really intensified our determination. I wasn't overly worried about the lawsuit necessarily. I kind of felt like it was more to just slow us down. Once the capital was committed, I don't really remember anything that I felt like was going to keep us from achieving our goals. So after we opened our terminal here in Arizona, we wanted to be able to replicate that somewhere else in the U.S. We were going to build around those terminals. Our driving associates would feel like that was their home. It wouldn't feel like a big company.
I was working for a company that was called Maytree. There was a big thick glass between the driver manager and the driver, and we could only talk through a little tiny hole. And that was it. They didn't interact with the drivers very well. I didn't like that atmosphere. When I started driving for night, I had access to all of my driver managers immediately. That was a big impression on me. And I've been here now for 25 years and I've never looked back.
If you had a problem, just had an open door policy. You go in and discuss what's wrong, and they always fixed it.
Oh yeah, Kevin, Keith, Larry, they were always in here. You know, they were a part of the office. They say hi to everybody. They were always friendly. They were always willing to help. You know, they knew you by your name.
We opened Katy. That was our first opening. We put in a fleet of about 20 or 25 trucks. We had a really good customer there. Then we opened Indianapolis. That was a bit more of a stretch. We didn't have a customer there like we had in Katy. That one was a little tougher. We relied on people from the outside to help us get that started. I would say the next big milestone was taking the company public. We didn't start our business until 10 years post-deregulation, so all the rock-solid, irregular route truckers had a big head start on us. By going public, it opened up the capital markets to us to where we could grow faster than we otherwise could. And the only way we were able to do that at such a small size was because of how profitable we were. I think when we went public, we probably had only about 250 trucks, which to us then seemed very large. We made our first acquisition in the year 2000, and it was of Faird Fastway Systems in Gulfport, Mississippi, and that's our Gulfport terminal. That's where you really figure out if you're good at business, is if you can go into a completely different culture and have success after you've paid a premium for that business.
You know, I started in 2002 and we had gone public in '94. And I think we were just shy of 300 million of revenue. And I felt like, man, maybe I missed my opportunity to grow with this company. Maybe it was too late.
We quickly grew from 2001 really to 2005, 2006. Our truck count grew well over 2,000 trucks. We built several terminals across the country. We got up to 26 terminals.
We had a very small fleet of reefer trailers that we ran on an account out of Arizona. The drivers loved it, but we only had a handful. And then we acquired a company and we started running refrigerated.
It was an acquisition of a company called Edwards Brothers. I think got us to about 200 trucks. And so I worked with a few gentlemen to try to build that company up because it was a newer endeavor for us. All we had done at night before was dry van. And just slowly through cost disciplines, through bringing on new customers, we grew that business, I think, over the next 5 years to nearly 1,000 trucks. And that was a time frame where most companies were not growing because of how difficult the economy was during the financial crisis. But we found a way, because again, we were small, nimble, very disciplined, and worked extremely hard to build out this company.
We started brokerage, and that's what we called our logistics business at the time, was night brokerage. And we were just full truckload, and we were trying to figure out, how does brokerage play a part? I worked in pricing at the time, and we were trying to decide who gets brokerage freight, who gets truckload freight. Like, how does that work? Who's gonna get the business? Then you bring in two other business units that not only are we competing against other terminals, but now we're competing against what we felt like was refrigerated and brokerage, and whether or not we wanted to give them our freight.
It's fundamental to our brokerage that we are complementary value to the fleet. Whatever we do has to be good for the whole enterprise in and of itself, and sometimes puts us in some awkward spots, but at the same time it breeds a very team environment. It's created some success and it's created sustainability in that space for us, and we've continued to be a value add for the enterprise since we started in 2005.
Opening up terminals, making acquisitions, opening up new lines of business, and you had to be nimble to be able to help the company take on different positions. I think I changed positions maybe 3 or 4 times within a 3-year period.
Being here for 25 years, I've been fortunate to do just a lot of different positions.
I've been on the customer side of things. I've been on now, general manager pricing side. I've been on the driver side.
I think I'm over 10 different positions with the company.
I've had 13 different roles within this organization.
But it was exciting. You got to learn a lot about the company, but you had to be willing to change. You had to be open-minded, and you had to be willing to roll your sleeves up. A lot of times it was kind of figuring it out on your own or through trial by fire.
I had taken the day off, and so I was at my house up in Surprise. And on the news, it shows up that there has been a fire at Night Transportation. I go outside and you can actually see the smoke plumes from my home. Huge, black, dark smoke that you could see from, 40 miles away. We used to have all of our servers, they were on the fuel island. So that was a big concern, is that if the fire spreads and actually goes to the building and gets to the fuel island, that's where all of our servers are. We were so concerned about that because all of our data is stored there, and it was stored for all of our drivers across the nation, and we would have had nothing. We'd have not known anything of what our drivers had done, where they were at. So they were trying to figure out how to get our servers moved, how to get them to a refrigerated place. There was so much chaos that was happening, and for the first time ever, I'd left my laptop at the office and I didn't take it home with me, and that's all I could think about is my laptop's gonna be ruined. My laptop is gonna be ruined. I wasn't thinking, oh my gosh, the building is gonna catch on fire. And I think one of the things we learned from that is we needed to have some plans in place so that if any kind of disaster happens, anything were to occur, that we've got backups upon backups, and that we have things that are printed and that we have plans in place so when something does happen, we know how to execute still and make sure that our drivers are taken care of.
The first shop that I was working out of, it's half of what our trailer shop is today. It was 3 bays, 2 pits, and then we literally had containers and lean-tos on the west side of the shop, which is what we called the tire bay and wash bay. Until what we have today with the full-blown body shop, the Mojave shop, a 10-bay trailer shop with an inspection lane, and this brand new 13-bay state-of-the-art tractor shop that we're working out of today. So I would say pretty much everything has changed since I first started.
One thing that was, different probably back then than today is the fact that you didn't have teams. When it came to communication, you just pretty much walked over to the person's desk and, everybody was in that same room.
Back in 1999, I don't even think I had a cell phone at the time. We literally had this deal where we asked all of our drivers to call into us by 9 a.m. each day, because if you think about it, we had no way of communicating information in terms of loads, load calls, empty calls, and so they would call in, and for the most part, I think they were calling in on payphones. They would give us their information. I'd just write down a piece of paper, go back to the computer, enter the computer work, and then at the same time, we would give them their information they needed for the rest of the day, because there was no other way for us to send them that information. And so that was pretty crazy to think about how we operate today versus when I first started.
My entire career kind of spanned the world before digital technology. We had to move from a world where we did a lot on paper to doing everything electronically. You think about the things that we had to do in this last 20 years to take advantage of those technologies, to get ahead of them, and to implement them within our company in a way that worked to help us be, the company that we always want to be, which is we always wanted to be the best.
The equipment itself, it's amazing the difference that we have in just trucks. For example, we've got 1001, which was the very first VIN number that Night Transportation ever bought, which is a 1990 cab-over Freightliner truck. And then I look at these 2026, specifically these Volvos that are coming into service here, and this literally is a state-of-the-art, what you would have pictured 30 years ago as this realistic transformer truck that you see in the movies. It's kind of a very broad spectrum of the diversity that we've seen with actually just truck manufacturing over the last few decades. These trucks are so involved mechanically, and it takes such a unique skill set today to diagnose and repair these equipment. We've got some trucks that have up to 8 computers on board. So trying to make sure they're all talking together, talking nice, and working together to give the driver the best experience of the equipment. It's a unique talent that we have to repair these, especially the trucks today.
Our ability when others were struggling to do so. Knight was one of the last publicly founded companies in truckload. And look, a lot of them just could not grow in a challenging market, and we figured out how to do it because we just had an intense desire to build out a national network. We had discipline on the cost side of the business, and we just had some really hard-working people that were so loyal and dedicated that during the kind of early 2000s, we were able to see expansion when many in our space kind of were struggling to grow or in fact were shrinking. And then in 2012, I had an opportunity to become the Chief Financial Officer at Knight Transportation. A bit overwhelming to be 31 and a CFO of a public company, but man, it helped me learn so much about our business, about our industry. I had great mentors. You know, our business has changed quite a bit over the last 15 years. You know, we just used to be Knight Transportation and had our own network. And when we did acquire companies in the early 2000s, usually you would rebrand them as a Knight terminal and plug them into our network. When we bought a company called Bar None in 2014, we realized they were a special company. They did things different than we did at Knight. And I think we had the revelation that if we tried to brand them as Knight and pull them into our network, we were probably going to hurt the value of that company. So it's the first time we let a brand stand on its own. And so that worked really well. And we were excited to see that that was a new model, something that really hadn't been done in our industry.
Investigators are still piecing together clues nearly 24 hours after the deadly workplace shooting near Katy.
That's something obviously that I don't think anyone is really prepared for. A disgruntled ex-driver came into the office in Katy with a gun and opened fire and shot and killed our terminal manager in Katy, Mike Dahlwood, and then took his own life. I remember that day vividly. It was the same day we were kicking off an initiative with all of our terminals to engage our drivers in what we called our Get Smart campaign, which was about safe driving practices. And we had these posters made, and drivers were going to come into the terminal and make the pledge or commitment to these practices, and they'd get one of these bracelets. And I still wear this bracelet today, but it just has a different significance for me. I just remember how much love and concern there was for Mike's family, and the commitment the company made to ensuring that Mike's wife and kid were taken care of. That day will always be a vivid memory for me.
So in 2017, we had an opportunity to merge with Swift Transportation.
There was a little, let's call it disruption in their leadership. When I heard the news that Jerry was no longer the CEO, it just came to me like, okay, they're 3 or 4 times larger than us, but we're really good at what we do. We knew the business from working there, we knew the business from competing there. Just based on the circumstances, I felt like Jerry would be supportive of a merger.
And that was monumental. I mean, that was a huge change because it really put us in a whole new stratosphere in terms of the company.
We worked with the Swift shareholders, figured out a way that we can merge as a company. And I think what our strategy was going to apply the same logic we had with Bar None, is to keep a separate Knight brand and a separate Swift brand. And we really saw both of our brands blossom over that period of time. And gosh, we learned so much from each other. It was just exciting to see how we could really operate as separate brands, but really share best practices and learn from each other. And so we've now employed that same strategy with LTL businesses that we've purchased, with another large company, US Express. Now we're a company that, like I said, when I started, we were under $300 million of revenue, and now we're about $7.5 billion of revenue. So exciting growth, a lot of great opportunities have been created for our people. And I've just been excited to be part of that.
In the early days, we grew with terminals, and here, as of recent, over the past decade or more, we've grown through mergers and acquisitions.
The growth over the years has been astronomical and great to see. In expanding our network, when you talk about drop yard opportunities and our driver base, we have so many more options and opportunities for our drivers than when I started.
I think that's probably the thing that defines the company today the most.
To see Knight, what it was versus what it is now, is just short of absolutely remarkable. I don't even think the Knights could have envisioned what this company is today. It's almost beyond belief.
We're huge. I think we're the biggest company, but it doesn't change. As big as it is, I mean, to me, it still feels small. I still see it like it's just how it was 25 years ago.
The culture is one thing that I think has been pretty much consistent. You hear people talk all the time about Knight feels like family. You still can just walk into anybody's office and say hi and have a conversation with anybody, from a coworker to upper management to, you know, the Knight brothers themselves if they're in the office. So, you know, the culture pretty much has still just been that same down home, you know, family culture. Everybody wants to work well and get along.
And then when we merged with Swift, I had an opportunity to still be the chief financial officer for our holding company, but play a big role in the integration and the improvements that we were trying to make at the Swift business. And that was the first time that I was working kind of shoulder to shoulder in the trenches with Kevin Knight, which felt different than before because he was always been, you know, the mentor and executive chairman. And this time it was, we were colleagues in the weeds trying to improve a business, you know, 3 to 4 times bigger than what we were accustomed to. And it was just fun to see that interaction and to work on it in a day-to-day basis with them and strategize and build out our tactics together.
Kevin approached me and said, hey, you know, I'd like you to be my assistant. And so for I think 2 years, I got a chance to follow Kevin around, to attend meetings, to travel with him, to see what was going on. And that was invaluable to me and really helped me in my career to grow.
I mean, their doors were always open, and that was something, again, coming straight out of college, I was really impressed with. You know, that I was able to be in meetings on occasion with those guys and learned a ton from them.
I've had a lot of mentors that have helped me and supported me and really helped me learn the business. Ultimately, that's kind of what I want to continue to do. Try to be a mentor, be a good leader.
Speaking specifically of Kevin, he's the most generous person I've ever met.
I came home on home time, found my house completely emptied out. So I checked my bank accounts and they had both been emptied out. The woman I was married to at the time had decided she'd had enough. I had a mortgage payment that was due. I had no idea how I was going to make that obligation. I just had nothing. Anyway, I passed Kevin Knight in the hallway and he just read my expression like that. I didn't tell him anything. And he just said to me, Alan, what's the matter? And I just kind of initially just said, Kevin, you don't really need to get involved in my personal business. No, tell me, what's going on? And so I told him. And he says, tomorrow go see your payroll representative and you'll have the money you need to pay your mortgage. You just pay me back when and how you can. But that's when my devotion to Knight Transportation basically became fixed.
The whole entire bottom fell out of my life. Keith Knight walked in one morning and I was sitting out there under the canopy. And he brought me into the office and he said, what can I do to help? And that right there codified why I was here. I
have many of the same experiences with the other leaders of our company. Adam, you know, he's a younger guy. But when you ask anyone what it's like to work with Adam, it's almost the same as you'll hear of working with Kevin. Tremendous leader who there's not a selfish bone in his body, there's not an egotistical bone in his body. It's just all about winning and being the best version of ourselves that we can be. And that sincerity, that authenticity, that humility, I just hope that all of our employees understand how special that is.
You know, I'm so proud of so many things. Gosh, I would just say our drivers. They sacrifice so much. I think back during COVID. We didn't know if we would have a business. Like, we just didn't know. We didn't know what we were going to be able to do. And you have all these employees that are counting on the business. I'm probably the most proud of how our people, and especially our drivers, showed up through a period that we had never seen and a period that we'll probably never see again. Stuff had to get delivered, and they just stepped up.
And really the heroes of the pandemic, and I don't think they get enough credit for this, is our drivers. Everybody kind of huddled down in fear of getting sick and stayed home and stayed with family. And meanwhile, our drivers were out there trying to find a restaurant that was open, trying to find a shipper that would let them use the bathroom. And so I think the pandemic did a couple things. It really changed the cycles of the industry to make us think differently about how we approach some of these big changes in the market. And secondly, I think it really gave the country an appreciation for truck drivers.
In 2024, had an opportunity to transition to the CEO of Knight Swift Holdings. So now I get to spend time with all of our different brands, including Knight, work with those different leaders. And my philosophy is listen to your people. There's a reason why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Trust your people, be decisive but balanced, work hard and get results. And I think if I can demonstrate that, I think our leaders will demonstrate that as well. And we're trying to influence 35,000 people across the Knight Swift Holdings when you factor in all of our employees. That's not easy to do. You have to have really good leaders that understand a vision, that have a voice, and are allowed to weigh in on our strategies and then help execute them.
I always felt very fortunate to work with the leadership that we had. Adam and Dave at the time, Kevin Quast. To me, it was like being a member of, the Patriots during the Brady years. It was like that. It was like, hey, I'm on the best team with the best coach and the best players, and I'm going to do everything I can not to let my team down.
The discipline that we have, we're highly regarded in the industry for having the lowest cost per mile. You don't get there without a lot of discipline in your business.
As I get a chance to interact with others in the industry, to hear them talk about Knight Transportation and to put Knight on a pedestal, if you will, is both something to be proud of and something I worry about. When they put you up on a pedestal, that means you have some pressure to produce and to continue to do what we're doing. And so there's always that fire in your gut that says, how are we gonna keep doing this?
I think the future for Knight Transportation looks bright. One thing that's very exciting is that we have done a lot of mergers and acquisitions with a lot of great brands. And every time we do that, it brings a new perspective, a new look at how we can change up our processes or the way we do things. And we get to learn from each other. And I don't think that we've even scratched the surface at the amount of collaboration we can do with all of our brands that brings value and benefit to our customers and our employees.
We have refrigerated, we have port, we have LTL now, we have brokerage. And so when I first started, it was just over-the-road trucking, dry van.
I was just reflecting, it's like, yeah, we've gone from a small town carrier and just taken that model and just put it everywhere. It's kind of interesting. It works.
There's so many things that you'd be proud of if you look back at your career. And to me, I'm proud of the relationships I've been able to build and that I'm able to call a lot of these people my friend.
I mean, the people here are really the biggest benefit to this job. The people here is what has made me stay.
And it's that willingness and the quality of the people that we have and the commitment that they make to doing those things that define Knight and will continue to define Knight for years to come.
You spend so much time with the people that you work with that you have to have a good relationship with them and you have to listen to them and you have to build trust.
Generally, the very first thing they ask you about is your family, your personal life. It's not about work. They cared for me personally before they cared for me professionally.
I met my wife at Knight. I feel pretty loyal to the company and they've been loyal to me.
It's a great group of people who really enjoy working with each other. That's what makes it worth coming back every day.
The culture of Knight, the closeness of this team, and the opportunities I was presented, I just never really had the desire to look anywhere else.
It's a place that I'm proud to be part of. This is a good place to be.
It's the drivers. It's the folks that I get to work with every day. You can do trucking anywhere. but you want to do it with people that you enjoy to work with, that you would trust.
If you're working in the office and you're a jerk, you're not going to last long, you know, because you're just not going to fit in with the culture.
It definitely got bigger, but I think it still held on to the smaller company being that, you know, they care about their drivers.
Initially, our family started the culture, but now the culture is just ingrained in our business, and everybody here can't ever forget that.
Every person on our team is critical. Drivers that are out there picking up loads. We have our mechanics that are in the shop, got our operations team, our back office teams there to support our drivers. I mean, every piece is needed, and every piece has to execute at a high level if we're going to be an industry leader. So it is all about our people.
I don't think we're going to settle for anything less than the best from an operational standpoint.
We all work long hours here at Night Transportation. We get the job done, but at those other jobs, it was like, I didn't really want to stay to do my job. Here, you know, I want to stay. I care and I have passion to make sure that we get things done.
You have your good days and you have your bad days, but there's certainly been way more good days than bad days.
It's been an incredible journey, and I've been very, very fortunate, and it's been an amazing opportunity.
You know, it was worth it. Every step of the way it was worth it.
All right. Well, you guys can chop that up and try to make it sound decent.